Rupert Murdoch has a net worth of $18 billion according to Forbes. He is the founder of News Corp and Fox Corporation. Through these corporations, he controls top news media outlets around the control that include the Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones Company, the New York Post in the USA, the Sun and the Times in the UK, the Daily Telegraph, Herald Sun and the Australian in Australia. He also controls news channels Sky News Australia and Fox News. He previously owned Fox's movie studio National Geographic Networks and Star India, which he sold to Disney for $71.3 billion in 2019. Through his hundreds of newspapers and TV channels, he controls the news and uses his power to broadcast news that is aligned with his interests. Want to know how Rupert Murdoch became the world's biggest news mogul? Watch the full video. We at Business Chronicles tell the stories of extraordinarily successful people. Please subscribe to our channel to help us in making more videos. Rupert Murdoch was born in Melbourne, Australia on March 11, 1931. He has Anglo-Irish and Scottish roots thanks to his parents Sir Keith Murdoch and Dame Elizabeth Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch went to Geelong Grammar School, an independent Anglican co-educational school. In high school, he served as editor of If Revived, a student journal, and co-editor of The Courier, the official journal publication of Geelong Grammar School. He coached his high school cricket team all the way to the national junior finals. He also contributed to the Melbourne Herald as a part-time employee, while his father prepared him to take over the family business. Murdoch attended Worcester College, Oxford in England, where he majored in philosophy, politics, and economics. He was active in the Labour Party at Oxford, running for secretary of the Labour Club and overseeing operations at Oxford Student Publications Limited, the Cherwell Press. Murdoch's early career as a publisher was heavily influenced by the sensationalist journalism he witnessed during a brief stint as an editor at London Daily Express. His father passed away when he was 21 years old, and he immediately returned from Oxford to take up the responsibilities of the family business. His father's Herald stock was sold off to pay taxes, leaving him with only News Limited, founded in 1923. Under his leadership, The News, a daily based in Adelaide and the company's primary asset, became an enormously profitable venture. His strategy for increasing readership included screaming headlines, extensive sports coverage, staunchly conservative editorials, and an emphasis on crime and controversy and human interest stories. Murdoch implemented the same or similar strategies in his future acquisitions. Beginning in 1956, when he purchased the faltering Sunday Times in Perth, Western Australia, he shifted his focus to buying and expanding his newspaper empire by purchasing suburban and provincial newspapers in New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, and the Northern Territory. These papers included the Sydney afternoon tabloid, The Daily Mirror. Murdoch made an initial move outside of Australia by purchasing a majority stake in The Dominion, a New Zealand newspaper. In 1964, while traveling around New Zealand, Murdoch learned of a takeover proposal for the Wellington paper by the British-Canadian media magnate Lord Thomson of Fleet. He made a spontaneous counteroffer. After a four-way tussle for control, Murdoch, then 32 years old, emerged victorious. A few months later in 1964, Murdoch established The Australian, Australia's first national daily newspaper, with initial editions published from Canberra and later from Sydney. In 1972, Murdoch purchased the Sydney morning daily, The Daily Telegraph, from Australian media billionaire Sir Frank Packer. In 1984, as recognition for his contributions to the publishing industry, he was honoured as a companion of the Order of Australia. Upon entering the British newspaper market, Murdoch first purchased the populist News of the World in 1968, and then in 1969 he bought The Sun from IPC. Murdoch redesigned The Sun as a tabloid and cut expenses by producing both publications in the same press. Immediately after purchasing it, he named Albert Lamb as the editor. By 1997, The Sun boasted a daily readership of 10 million people. In 1981, Lord Thomson of Fleet, a Canadian newspaper publisher, sold the faltering Times and Sunday Times to Murdoch. Lord Thomson had incurred financial losses due to the lengthy period of industrial action that halted publishing the Times. Having seen Murdoch's growth and success at The Sun, he had faith that Murdoch could achieve the same for other struggling publications. In 1973, the San Antonio Express News became Murdoch's first acquisition in the United States. After establishing a foothold in Australia and Britain, Murdoch relocated to New York City in 1974 to further his expansion into the American market. After that, in 1976, he bought the New York Post and he created Star, a supermarket tabloid. Murdoch became a naturalized U.S. citizen on September 4, 1985, to comply with the legal requirement that only U.S. citizens could own U.S. television stations. In March 1984, due to U.S. sanctions against Iran at the time, Marvin Davis sold Mark Rich's stake in 20th Century Fox to Rupert Murdoch for $250 million. Subsequently, Davis reneged on an agreement with Murdoch to acquire John Klug's Metro Media television stations. Nonetheless, Rupert Murdoch purchased the stations on his own, independent of Marvin Davis, and then at a later time paid $325 million to buy out Davis's remaining stake in Fox. The Fox Broadcasting Company was established on October 9, 1986, with its roots in the 6 Metro Media-owned TV stations. It eventually became known for groundbreaking shows like The Simpsons and The X-Files. In 1987, he purchased the Herald and Weekly Times Limited, a publishing company his father had previously run. In 1996, 20th Century Fox, owned by Rupert Murdoch, purchased the remaining assets of 4-Star Television from Ronald Perelman's Compact Video. Today, 20th Century Fox Television controls the majority of the program catalog of 4-Star Television. Despite its various assets, News Corp was $7 billion in debt after Murdoch's several buyouts in the 80s. Therefore, Murdoch was forced to sell many of the American magazine assets he bought in the mid-1980s to offset his massive debt load. In 1993, Rupert Murdoch's Fox News outbid CBS for the exclusive rights to cover the National Football Conference of the National Football League, or NFL. This move allowed Fox to expand its programming schedule to include all 7 days of the week. In 1995, the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, began investigating Fox after claims that News Limited's location in Australia rendered Murdoch's ownership of Fox illegal. However, the FCC sided with Murdoch, concluding that his control of Fox was in the public's best interest. In the same year, Murdoch and MCI Communications announced plans to create the Weekly Standard, a significant news website and magazine. In the same year, 1995, News Corporation and Telstra collaborated to launch the Foxtel pay television network in Australia. In 1996, Murdoch launched Fox News Channel, a 24-hour cable news channel to compete in the growing cable news industry. Based on 2009 rating surveys, the network produced 9 of the top 10 shows in the cable news genre at the time. Late in 2003, Rupert Murdoch paid General Motors $6 billion to purchase a 34% stake in Hughes Electronics. Hughes Electronics is the company that owns and operates the largest satellite television service in the United States, which is known as DirecTV. His Fox studio produced the blockbusters Titanic and Avatar. In 2004, Rupert Murdoch officially announced his intention to relocate the headquarters of News Corporation from Adelaide, Australia to the United States. This was meant to attract American fund managers who are increasingly reluctant to invest in non-US enterprises. Murdoch assumed a dominant presence in online media after News Corporation purchased Intermix Media Inc. on July 20, 2005, for a total price of $580 million. Intermix Media was the owner of several social networking-themed websites including MySpace and Imagine Games Network. In June 2011, the company News Corp sold MySpace for $35 million. On September 11, 2005, News Corporation announced it would purchase IGN Entertainment for $650 million. In 2007, Murdoch acquired Dow Jones Company, which gave him publications like The Wall Street Journal, Barron's Magazine, the Far Eastern Economic Review based in Hong Kong, and Smart Money. In 2015, Murdoch stepped down as CEO of 21st Century Fox, but he retained ownership of the corporation until Disney bought it in 2019. Before the acquisition, Murdoch broke off a number of TV broadcasting businesses into the Fox Corporation, which he currently owns. This includes Fox News, where Murdoch served as interim CEO from 2016 to 2019, following Roger Ailes' retirement due to sexual harassment allegations. With an investment of around $105 million, News Corporation acquired 35% of the South China Morning Post Group in November 1986. In 1999, Murdoch considerably increased his music holdings in Australia by purchasing the majority share in a leading Australian independent label, Michael Gudinski's Mushroom Records. He then merged that with Festival Records to form Festival Mushroom Records. Rupert Murdoch was born to a wealthy family which controls news interests in New Zealand. He used his family's money and influence in the news industry to slowly acquire local news outlets. Once he bought out all competitors in New Zealand and Australia, he went global and slowly acquired major outlets in UK and USA, making him the biggest news mogul the world had ever seen. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to watch more videos like this.